Once life sort of had its way with me and taught me some good lessons about that a heart really isn't complete until it's completely broken.
Back in the day, Steve Perry was the voice of rock. Journey's frontman, the guy behind Don't Stop Believin', which is one of the most played songs ever. Millions of albums sold out arenas, fans screaming his name. He became a living legend. But then, out of nowhere, Steve just stopped singing and disappeared. And now he has finally told us the reason, and it is something that nobody expected. So, what was the reason he stopped singing and vanished completely? Let's find out. His early life. To know the real reason why Steve Perry walked away from singing, we have to go way back. Because the answer has everything to do with the most important person in his life, his mother. Steve was born on January 22nd, 1949 in a quiet little town called Hanford, California. His full name is Stephen Ray Perry. He was the only child, and he had Portuguese roots. His family came from the Azores Islands, and he actually spoke Portuguese at home. Even though he had a small-town life, life was not easy for him. When Steve was just 7 years old, his parents split. His dad, who was a part-time singer and radio station owner, moved out of the house. And Steve stayed behind with his mom, Mary. They were incredibly close. It was just the two of them now. They ended up moving in with Steve's grandparents, and from that moment on, Mary was everything. His anchor, his safe place, and yes, his biggest supporter. On Steve's 12th birthday, Mary gave him a gold necklace with a little music note pendant. Just a simple gift, but he treasured it. He still wears it, even now. That same year, they were driving together when a Sam Cooke song came on the radio. Steve didn't know it yet, but Sam's voice in that song inspired him so much that it shifted something inside him. That was the moment he decided that he wanted to sing. But his life did not just shift right away. When Mary remarried, Steve moved with her and his stepdad to a town called Lemoore. He went to high school there, joined the marching band, and even worked part-time on his stepdad's turkey farm. He would have long school days and do chores the rest of the time. His dream of singing still felt far away. The one thing that never changed was his mom's belief in him. She knew. Even when Steve had doubts, even when life tried to pull him down, she reminded him who he was. Without Mary, there probably wouldn't be a Steve Perry the way we know him. And that's where it all starts. The struggling years. Steve left his small town behind. His only dream was to make music. But that dream didn't come easily. He took whatever gigs he could find. Some days he was singing radio jingles. Other days he was working as a sound engineer at a recording studio. It paid the bills, but it wasn't his music. And that started to wear him down. At one point, he was just playing drums in small-time rock bands across Sacramento and Thousand Oaks. That voice everyone would come to know was still hidden behind a drum kit. And honestly, no one was giving him a real chance to shine. One of those early bands was called Pieces. After a year and a half of chasing that spark, the group fell apart like the others. But Steve didn't stop. He kept trying. And finally, something clicked when he formed a new band called Alien Project. This time, he was not behind the drums. He was front and center, vocals, stage, spotlight. They wrote original songs. They recorded demos. They even had a great lineup. People started noticing. It finally looked like the door to their success was about to open. And then, out of nowhere, it slammed shut. Richard Michaels, who was one of the band members and Steve's close friend and bassist, was killed in a sudden car crash. After he was gone, the band ended, and Steve packed up everything and went home. He returned to Lemoore and started working on his stepdad's turkey farm. It was quiet, physical work. It kept him busy. And for a while, that was enough. He really thought that was it. He didn't try to get gigs or send tapes. He didn't even sing to himself. The music and the passion disappeared. The same guy who used to dream about becoming the next Sam Cooke was now shoveling feed and stacking crates. But then came that one call. In fact, it was a miracle. Someone at CBS Records had found an old demo from Alien Project, a song called If You Need Me, Call Me. That voice on the tape was emotional and so clean. It landed in the hands of Herbie Herbert, who was the manager of a band that was barely hanging on. That band was Journey. They were on the verge of being dropped by their label. They had already gone through 3 albums and still hadn't found their breakout sound. They needed something or someone that could change their entire direction. Herbie listened to Steve's tape and instantly knew that Steve was the guy who could turn the band around. Now Journey already had a lead singer at the time. It was Robert Fleischman. So they had to be sneaky. Steve was brought in quietly. He sang one song during a rehearsal break. That's all it took. Herbie let him in. And just like that, Steve Perry got his shot. Just because he didn't give up, even when everything told him to. And just like that, Journey got their lead singer, and they were about to change rock history, becoming a rock star. Once Steve Perry officially joined Journey, the band did not become famous overnight. He made his debut with the band on October 28, 1977, in San Francisco. And yes, it was a little awkward. The crowd didn't cheer right away. Some fans missed the old sound, and even within the band, not everyone was thrilled about this new direction. But one thing nobody could deny was that the guy could sing, and once he opened his mouth, people started falling head over heels for him. Their first album with Steve was Infinity, and it was released in 1978. That was the real beginning. Even though it was not a massive global hit, it got the ball rolling. The song Wheel in the Sky made it onto the Billboard Hot 100, and 2 other tracks charted too. That had never happened for Journey before. They were finally getting noticed, and the reviews were all about Steve's voice. That mix of power and emotion made everyone admit that Journey was an entirely different band now. By the time Evolution came out in 1979, more people had become his fans. Their song Lovin', Touchin', Squeezin' cracked the top 20. The sound had shifted from jazzy, experimental rock to something more catchy and emotional. Some people complained it was too pop, but Steve didn't care. He was doing what felt right, and clearly it was working. In 1980, they followed up with Departure, and suddenly it was hit after hit. Any Way You Want It became one of their most recognizable songs. That year, they also released their first live album, Captured, but nothing compared to what came next. In 1981, Journey released Escape. That album was the turning point, the one that launched them into the stratosphere. Don't Stop Believin', Who's Crying Now, Open Arms, Stone in Love. They had back-to-back anthems. This is what made them super famous. Stadiums, radios, MTV. Their songs were becoming part of people's lives. Prom nights, weddings, road trips. That kind of fame doesn't fade easily, and Steve became a global icon. People started recognizing him. That voice, the long hair, the tuxedo tailcoat, and the way he could hit those high notes without even flinching, it was super impressive. Even if you didn't know his name, you knew his voice. And fans started following the band around the country, buying every piece of merch they could get their hands on. In 1983, they followed up with Frontiers, and once again, the famous hits kept coming. Faithfully, Separate Ways, Send Her My Love. 4 songs from that album landed in the Billboard Top 40. And yes, Faithfully might just be one of the most emotional songs of the decade. People thought Steve wrote it, but actually it was Journey's keyboardist Jonathan Cain who came up with the whole thing. He came up with the melody and lyrics in one sitting. Steve's performance, though, made it unforgettable. Now at the absolute peak of Journey's fame, Steve decided to take a detour. He wanted to go solo. In 1984, he released his first solo album, Street Talk. That was not an easy decision either. The band was still hot, but Steve had ideas he wanted to try on his own. And to his surprise, Street Talk was a hit. Over 2 million copies sold. Oh Sherry became everyone's favorite. And yes, that name was based on a real person, Sherry Swafford. They were dating at the time, and she even appeared in the music video. The song reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. Another track, Foolish Heart, also did well. That same year, he also took part in the recording of We Are the World, the legendary charity single featuring just about every major artist of the time. Steve sang 2 lines, but his voice made the song famous. Even surrounded by legends like Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder, Steve held his own. And then came Raised on Radio in 1986. Steve returned to Journey, but things had changed. He was producing the album himself now, and some of the original band members were gone. His mother was very ill during this time, and he kept flying back and forth between the studio and her bedside. It was an emotionally brutal stretch. The album still did well, double platinum with 4 top 20 singles. But something had changed. The band was burning out, and the tension was growing. Still, they pushed through. In August 1986, they started a massive world tour. MTV even aired a special concert film. From the outside, they were at the top of the world, but Steve was struggling. We will reveal the reason in a while. For now, you have to know that there came a moment during that time that nobody saw coming. In early 1987, Steve sat down with the band and said he could not go. 15 shows were still scheduled, but he walked away. That was the end of the first chapter. Now, here is something a lot of people don't realize. Even during those superstar years, Steve didn't live like a rock star stereotype. He was not wild or flashy. He didn't throw TVs out the window. He kept to himself. He saved his money. He lived small. For him, being famous did not matter to him. He just cared about the music and the connection. That's what mattered. Even after he stepped away, his fans did not disappear. New generations kept discovering Journey. Don't Stop Believin' became a cultural anthem, which was then used in TV shows, movies, and even sports events. That one song alone kept their name alive. And every time people heard it, they heard him. In 1994, he came back for a moment. He released his second solo album, For the Love of Strange Medicine. It was not as big as Street Talk, but it still proved he hadn't lost that voice. Then in 1996, Journey got back together with Steve, Neil Schon, and Jonathan Cain. They recorded Trial by Fire, which debuted at number 3 on the Billboard charts. The single, When You Love a Woman, made it to the top 20. It felt like the magic was coming back. But then, right before the big reunion tour, Steve injured his hip during a hiking trip in Hawaii. Doctors said he needed surgery. The band waited. Then, they gave him an ultimatum. Get the surgery now, or we move on without you. Steve hesitated, and just like that, it was over again. And we are not even done with the story yet. Not even close. Because what came next was when things got personal. That's when we really see who he is. His biggest heartbreak. For someone with a voice that could move a crowd to tears, Steve Perry knew heartbreak all too well. But the biggest one of his life had nothing to do with romance or music. It was the day he lost the one person who believed in him from the very beginning. His mother, Mary. While Journey was recording Raised on Radio in 1985, Steve was constantly going back and forth between the studio and his mother's bedside. She had been diagnosed with a serious neurological disease, and it was getting worse. Steve tried to be everywhere, working on the album, handling the band, flying home to care for her. It was exhausting, but he didn't care. She came first for him. She was his first priority. Mary had been there when he was nobody, when he almost quit, when he thought music was not going to happen. She was the one who told him to keep going. So when she got sick, there was no question. He put everything else on pause. The band was not thrilled about the delays. Recording kept getting interrupted. People were getting impatient. But Steve was not willing to compromise. He stayed by her side until the very end. On December 4th, 1985, she passed away. That changed him completely. When she died, it felt like the light inside him flickered out. He kept going for a little while. He finished the album and went on tour, but something was missing. The stage didn't feel the same. The music didn't feel the same. He was disconnected from everything. The truth is, he was barely holding on. His voice felt strained, his energy was gone, and every day on tour felt heavier than the last. When it finally got too much, he quietly told the band he could not keep going. So he left. That heartbreak never fully left him. Losing his mother broke his rhythm. The person who gave him his first music note pendant, the one who knew what his voice could do long before the world did, was gone. And for a while, he couldn't bring himself to sing again. The comeback from 1998 to 2014, Steve Perry vanished. Then came 2011, and that's when his life started to change. He watched a breast cancer documentary directed by Patty Jenkins, who would later go on to make Wonder Woman. That's where he saw Kelly Nash. She was a psychologist fighting stage 4 cancer. She was smart, kind, beautiful, and terminally ill. Steve was so moved by her smile that he asked Patty if he could contact her. She warned him. Kelly didn't have long. He reached out anyway. They met for lunch, and that turned into a relationship. Steve hadn't fallen in love like this before. He stayed by her side, even knowing she might not survive. They were together for nearly 18 months. He truly believed their love might save her. It didn't. She passed away in December 2012. But before she died, she made him promise to not disappear again. She made him promise to go back to music. So he did. On May 25th, 2014, after 19 years off stage, Steve Perry shocked everyone by walking out during an Eels concert in St. Paul, Minnesota. He sang Open Arms, Lovin', Touchin', Squeezin', and It's a Mother's Love. The audience lost it. That voice was still there, raw, powerful, and full of soul. He built a home studio, wrote new songs, and in 2018 he officially returned with Traces, his first solo album in 24 years. It debuted at number 6 on the Billboard 200. The lead single, No Erasing, reached the top 10 on the adult contemporary chart. Songs like Sunshine's Gray, We're Still Here, and most of all, weren't trying to relive the Journey sound. He called the album a toolkit for survival. Then in 2021, he surprised fans again with The Season, a soft and jazzy Christmas album featuring classics like Silver Bells and I'll Be Home for Christmas. He produced it himself. No label pressure, just him and a small group of trusted musicians. And in 2023, he showed up on Rockstar, Dolly Parton's genre-hopping rock album. The two sang a duet version of Open Arms, and it worked out great. She said she was honored. By 2024, he announced the Season 3, which is another holiday album. He may not be on tour, but he is back for real this time. In the studio, on recordings, on stage when he feels like it, and finally, on his own terms. Wait. Now tell us, what's your favorite Steve Perry song? Drop the lyrics in the comments below. And before you go, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more updates. Goodbye for now.